Hello, everyone. Is everyone seeing some great movies this weekend? Awesome. Well, we're super excited for this conversation, Finding Your People with ColorCreative and Canva. Let's give it up for them. And I'm so excited to welcome to the stage Kate Marsden, the head of Global Brand Partnerships with Canva.
Thanks, Hannah. Hi, everyone. I'm Kate. Yes, I'm head up Global Brand Partnerships at Canva. I'm based out of our head office in Sydney, Australia. It is such a pleasure to be here. We're proud partners of Proof. It's so great to see such a festival like this get off the ground. So kudos to you all for supporting it in its inaugural year. So I'm going to be moderating this conversation tonight, which I'm really honoured and thrilled to do. So it's going to be an hour. I'll introduce kind of why Canva is even here in the first place, and certainly give some context to the panel. I'll then invite our panelists up and get the conversation started. So we'll be talking for about 30 minutes or so, but certainly want your questions at the end. So the mic is just here in front of the first section. I'll call for questions towards the end, so please save them and come to the mic. But just a bit about Canva. So for those of you that aren't familiar with it, it's an easy to use design platform. So you can basically design whatever you want, whether it's film pitch decks, posters, social media posts, documents, with zero design skills. And we're on a mission to empower the world to design, regardless of your background, your skills, and certainly we've been identifying a big opportunity for us to help empower people and creatives in film, because we all know that a pitch deck can be the make or break of whether a project gets greenlit or not, and we would hate to think that not having a beautifully designed deck is the reason why an important story is not told. So we've been forming partnerships with really value-driven organisations in the entertainment industry, and very proud of the fact that ColorCreative was our first partner. We talk about empowerment, and certainly there's a value alignment there with ColorCreative. And so tonight's panel is really all about, we're going to explore this theme of finding your people. So finding your collaborators in the industry to start to do projects with and do your best work. And it's certainly something that ColorCreative hold very dear to them, and to the point where they've formed a whole program training people and giving them opportunities to find their people. So we'll be hearing more about that, but we'll also be exploring this theme as it relates to authenticity. So how do you find your people? How do you build your career whilst maintaining your authentic self and your authenticity within your projects? So no further ado, we'll get the conversation started. Really thrilled to introduce our panelists tonight. Welcome firstly to Deniese Davis. So Deniese is co-founder of ColorCreative alongside Issa Rae, their management company dedicated to supporting diverse creators with programs including the Find Your People program. Deniese is a 4-time Emmy-nominated producer with previous credits including Emmy-nominated comedy series Insecure, a Black Lady sketch show, and the HBO Max comedy series Rap Shit. Thanks for joining us, Deniese. Got a few fans here, Deniese. Syreeta, welcome you to the stage. Syreeta Singleton is a writer on the verge of becoming a household name if she's not already, having written HBO's Max hit comedy series Insecure, Showtime's Black Monday, and Apple's animated series Central Park. Syreeta's also been the showrunner and exec producer for seasons 1 and 2 of Rap Shit, produced by Hooray, and has become a direct benefactor of ColorCreative's programs to support diverse creators, which we're going to hear a lot about tonight. So thank you for joining us, Syreeta. And last but absolutely not least, please welcome Ashley Calloway. Ashley is a manager and producer at ColorCreative, where she represents actors, showrunners, writers, producers and directors. Ashley works with her clients to build and develop their business strategy and brand. Clients include Syreeta, Showrunner, Lawrence Lamont, the director, the actor Mike Merrill, and many more. Ashley is an experienced professional who has worked in television, both scripted and unscripted, talent in film and TV, brand partnerships and sales. So I'm going to scoot over to the chair and get the conversation started. Okay, we're going to start. I think all our mics should be on.
Checking. Yes, hello. Okay.
Okay, some icebreaker, rapid fire questions to get us started. Last movie you watched, Ashley?
Okay, I was just joking with them about this because the last movie I watched, which was naturally on my TV when I turned the TV, but I shamelessly could not look away, was The Meg 2. So I recently watched that like the other night while I was like doing work on my computer. So that was the last movie I watched.
And you loved it.
Yeah, it was actually entertaining. It was not great, but it was entertaining. They had a Kraken, like it made no sense. But
The last movie I watched was No One Will Save You on Hulu. Oh, yes, you love that movie. I did too. It was really good. I love that Hulu does a whole Halloween type of theme. That's my shit. No One Will Save You.
I actually watched a movie last night, which I was very ashamed to say that I had never seen before, but I saw Memories of Murder, if anyone is familiar. Wonderful, wonderful film. Bon Joon-ho's second film, I believe, but beautiful film, and just watch that at home. So
Nice. And one more, if you could collaborate with one person, who's top of your list? Ashley.
I'm going to choose Martin Scorsese because I really can't wait to see his movie that just came out. So I'm going to go see that tomorrow. Yeah.
For me, definitely Michaela Cole. I think she's such an excellent storyteller and like pulls from her life in such a way that is, I don't know, always resonates and feels so authentic and present. So absolutely Michaela Cole.
there's so many. I think I would go with like Lin-Manuel. I love musicals. I'd love to collab and find a great, dope new musical with him.
Yeah. Musical up and coming, Denise, the next project. Well, look, let's start with you, Denise. So would love for you to talk to us about, I mean, when we spoke yesterday, you told me that ColorCreative is now 9 years old. And so the point of why you started it and what it looked like 9 years ago and what it looked like now, if you could take us on that journey a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I was telling Kate how I couldn't believe it because obviously time flies. And, you know, Issa Rae and I started working together in 2012 on The Misadventures of Awkward Black Girl. And about 2 years later and 2 years before Insecure, she came to me with this idea. And I'm going to have to actually shout out Syreeta because she's in a lot of ways the impetus of how it all started. But essentially, ColorCreative was born initially out of a pilot initiative that Issa and I did, which was very ambitious because we had no money, but we essentially wanted to find a way to fund and produce 3 independent television pilots and provide an opportunity for aspiring writers to learn how to become a showrunner by making their first project, because we felt like a lot of writers tend to develop and write things and try to get their things read and seen, but very little do they get a chance to actually then be a part of the process through production to see how it executes to screen, right? And that is actually I think the learning curve of becoming a showrunner. So long story short, Issa and I in 2013, we hosted this new media workshop, I think it was, and we were very self-made back then, and we still are. But we just self-produced it, put invites out, and Syreeta, I don't want to take your story away from you, but Syreeta showed up to this workshop, and she met Issa. She gave her a web series that she had wrote. Issa read it and came to me and said, hey, I read this really funny thing. I actually think it should be a TV pilot. Should this be the first pilot we make? And then we started putting a plan together, and she goes, actually, instead of 1, how about 3? And I was like, yeah, we can do 3. And we couldn't get it funded. We couldn't get any sponsorships, couldn't figure out how to raise money for it. And so Issa actually invested in these 3 pilots. True story, almost went broke. And the summer of 2014, we shot them. And to this day, we're most proud of just seeing it through, even though we just weren't sure what the result was going to be, because now 9 years later, the company has grown from being an initiative with many different pipeline programs along the way to now being a management company. But to also see someone like Syreeta, who was a part of that first pilot program, kind of go to have an incredible career as a showrunner, right? And one of the other writers was a woman named Brittany Nichols, who's now a writer-producer on Abbott Elementary. And the other writer, Sean Boxey, who unfortunately is no longer with us, actually did go on to have an amazing writing career on shows like Silicon Valley. And so it really did show us that if you build it, you know, they will come, and it exists. And I think the ethos of our company has always remained the same since then, which is to provide opportunities to continue to build pipelines and continue to make sure that, you know, someone is reaching back and helping others along the way.
So I guess you've built ColorCreative to be that platform where people can find their people, but how did you mentioned Issa, but how did you find your people even before that?
Yeah, I'm a film school baby. I went to undergrad film school, and I went to grad school here in LA at AFI and got my master's in producing. And when I graduated in 2012, I made a conscious choice to go freelance. I knew I can always be an assistant, and I was really hungry to get more experience and see what I had to offer people who wanted to get their work created. And true story, a friend sent me an email that had a job posting that said a line producer for a web series, paid. And he was like, hey, I saw this and thought of you. And I was like, thanks, good looking out. And I sent my resume in, didn't say what it was for, didn't say who it was for, anything. It was just another thing I was applying to that day. And I got an email from Issa, who was like, hey, got your resume, can we meet for coffee tomorrow? Didn't know who she was, did my homework overnight, and I basically skipped into the interview being like, okay, I don't know who else you're meeting with, but here's the thing, I'm a producer. If this is what you're looking for, I can do this for you. And she gave me that shot. And a week later, I jumped into the 4th episode of the 2nd season of Awkward Black Girl, and that started this wonderful 11-year partnership many years later. But along the way, what working with her and over the years showed us was connecting with other creatives who are just really great at their craft and being able to collaborate together, because at the end of the day, this business is all about that, right? You don't do anything on your own. And I think there's this misconception of everything being so auteur-driven, but what they don't understand is that there's also hundreds of people behind that project or behind that person. And I think working with someone like Issa and her giving me that shot, we found that it's so intentional to build that like-minded community around us. And it's how, you know, we did things like the pilot that summer for low budget, right? Just plucking great creatives and crew and DPs and people who were just hungry and wanted to work and saying, hey, we have this project we're going to make, so do you want to come do it? And then they did, right? And so that's kind of how I found her. That eventually, I think, was the genesis to finding my people many years later.
And then you're in there at very early on, Syreeta, too, as Deniese just said. So can you tell us, how did you find that opportunity, and what was your early experience like back then when ColorCreative was kind of forming to be that platform for people?
Yeah, the first time I actually came across Issa was in 2009. Do you know this? You don't know this, huh?
I do know this.
Okay. Was in 2009 where I was acting and writing, and we were doing a web series with Brandon. I don't know if you know him. Whatever. But we were doing a web series then, and Issa was brought in to direct. This is when she was directing. And I didn't get to connect with her a lot, but I remember seeing her face a lot behind the camera looking like this. And so then when the Awkward Black Girl, when Awkward Black Girl happened, and then it was everywhere and it was all over the web, I was like, I know that awkward face. That's the girl who was directing. And then I looked for her online, and I saw that you guys were doing a workshop. And I'm like, okay, now I'm writing. I have this pilot. I've finally gotten serious and said, you know, I really want to take writing seriously and put that first for me. I don't know what to do with it now. Then I see the workshop. So I went to the workshop, and I was like, hey, I stood in line to talk to Issa. I was like, do you remember me? I used to act, but now I write. And I have this thing, will you read it? And she said yes, and she was so nice. I expected nothing. And she gave me her email address. I was like, oh my gosh, she's just gonna give me her email address. And then I sent her my pilot, and she wrote back like almost immediately, like within 24 hours, and was like, I love this, but I work in web, not TV, and this feels like TV to me. And I was like, okay, okay, that's fine, but it's good to know that you think I'm funny. And I guess that's something. And then I want to say over the next like couple years, she'd reach out to me every few months, and we get a coffee or we get lunch or dinner, and then like each time I feel like I was hearing about a step in the process that you guys were taking. Like the next time we met, she's like, hey, I was thinking about it, and I really want to be able to make this. I'm gonna figure it out. Okay. Okay, cool. I'm just happy to be in your company. Then a few months later, let's get dinner. Hey, so I think I found a way to do this. I'm not gonna tell you too much. She's very secretive. She's like, she doesn't want to talk about it till it's done. I think I found a way to do this. Hold tight, we're gonna make this. And I'm like, okay. And during that time, I'm like, I had a baby. So hearing you say that Color Creative or the management is not the management, but like Find Your People and all of that is 9 years old. I'm like, same age as my baby. So yeah, so then by the time we were shooting it and it all happened and she got the funding, I just couldn't believe it. I had never really been on a set like that before. So to have something that I had written, be made and have somebody believe and work as hard as the two of you did. I mean, it was like incredibly inspiring and like a lesson that I don't think I would have gotten anywhere else. And we shot those pilots, and like, I don't know, I still like I recently rewatched So Jaded randomly, and I'm like, oh, this was good. This was good. This is a really good moment, and obviously like so much has come from that.
I guess something that struck me with what you were just saying is that you might find your people, but it might be a long time before something actually happens with those people. So I guess a lot of patience has to be involved too in this process of finding your collaborators and trusting the process and the people, I suppose. But Ashley, you were the first hire, I think, of ColorCreative, which... So I just want to put you in the mix here. So there's some pilot programs been happening. You were the first hire, and it was a bit of a scrappy startup, which certainly Canva was at one stage as well.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah.
No, I mean, when you said trust the process, I think that resonates with my story so much. I was an assistant at CAA for about 4 years and was trying to find my way in this business from the business side, because I knew that for my skill set and what I really cared about was supporting artists and, working on these desks in television and film and talent, and it just wasn't working out for me. And, eventually I got to a point where I knew management was what I wanted to do, but in this business, a lot of times, if you don't have a book of business, you don't have clients, no one's going to hire you, right, just to be a manager. So I was going out for jobs, and I was trying to make the switch, but they were like, yeah, you could be an assistant. And I was like, guys, I've done it for 4 years. Like, just give me a chance. And at that time, when I was at CAA, just relationship building. I was popping around different events and different things within the industry, making sure that I was meeting as many amazing people as I could. And that's when I happened to meet Issa, and just built a natural friendship with her. I think the through line here is that she's really an amazing person that she's not your celebrity. She's like a normal person, and she really acts like that and intentionally is checking up on you. And so, eventually I had left CA. I was at this random job, and I was hating my life. And literally, this is probably the best part of the story. I was at the Beyonce concert. We are all super Beyonce girls. And she was like, girl, did Deniese talk to you? And I'm like, no, I love Deniese, but no, she hasn't told me anything. She was like, okay, call me tomorrow. Very cryptic. I was like, what? And literally, I spoke to Deniese, I spoke to Issa, and they were like, we're starting a management company. I knew what ColorCreative was because of the programs and the things that they were already doing, which was just such a big deal at that time, because, I mean, this was and Insecure was, coming out. So it was just so many things that they were doing that I was like, oh my God, this is a dream. This is me trusting the process and waiting and not going to just take another job at some random management company that, quite frankly, wasn't the place that I wanted to be. And so literally they were like, we're starting a management company. we want you to come be a manager. Come sit down and talk with us. And I literally was like, is this God like calling my phone right now?
Beyonce, I think.
It was Beyonce. I always, if I ever see her, I'm like, girl, you got me my career, so thank you. But it was just that, yeah, a culmination of all those things, which I'm extremely grateful for, because I think when people can see you for the job that you know you want to do and give you a chance to do it, and that's what Deniese did to me. I always joke to Deniese, I'm like, you gave me my life, like you and Issa just like, but it's real in the sense where, you know, I was potentially thinking about leaving the business and going to business school and doing something random like finance and like probably hating my life even more. So, you know, so I think that yeah, that's like kind of how I fit into the mix. And seeing the management company grow into management and production, and then with the Find Your People program that Deniese came up with, it's like the message has really just come full circle, like truly. And it's so exciting, and I'm excited to, you know, talk about that portion and what Deniese has built with that. And, you know, knowing that Syreeta is like the first person that kind of went through that, you know, just uprising, that hopefully we can do that some more.
Can I just add something that Ashley misses out? She makes it seem like we had a management company and she just came over and the doors were open. Let me tell you, when we asked Ashley to join, it was almost bootstrapping back to our origin days, because Issa and I were like, you know what? Forget about it. We're tired of trying to go find this money and trying to do it. So let's just do it. Let's just go back to our roots. And so when Ashley said yes, we were like, okay, well, you're gonna be the only one for a while. And
I was like,
and I was like, but we want to sign our first 5 clients, and you're going to be a part of this as the manager to help us figure out who they are. And I was still working full time at ColorCreative at the time, and I was like, and I'm going to be here to have your back and make sure we usher this in until we find someone who can take over the mantle and really build this out. And that person I see in the audience, I'm going to shout her out, happens to be Talitha Watkins, who now is our president of ColorCreative. But Talitha didn't join us for a whole year, so we hadn't found her yet. So Ashley, in her first year, was kind of the only manager. And again, in a startup mentality, like you said, she saw the opportunity and just jumped into it. And now I'm so proud that, you know, the management company has existed as a part of ColorCreative now for 3 years, and we have over 100 clients. We have 5 managers. Like, it has become a force of nature. But, you know, I always think, like, if Ashley hadn't said yes, I'm like, well, I don't know who we would have found, because, you know, it's a lot to ask someone to just believe in what something can be. And I'm extremely grateful to that. So.
girl, I'm grateful.
So I want to get to Find Your People program, but let me know if it's too much of a jump. So we've got Ashley now working kind of by herself for a little while, and Find Your People didn't start off as a program. It started off as a networking party. Is that correct? So
yes.
Talk us through this timeline.
Oh, the party.
You've got your first employee.
Yeah. So we, again, just for clarity, ColorCreative launches in 2014. We kind of relaunch or expand with the management company in 2020, and are going into 2020 actually.
Yeah, it was
the party,
2019 when I started.
Whoa,
Yeah,
sorry,
October.
my mind is blown, because I'm like, oh wow, we really did this first networking party 3 months into the management company. But essentially, as we were going into the new year, as Hooray and ColorCreative and all the other Issa's various companies were talking amongst each other, I think one thing that stuck out from the ColorCreative brand was, you know, up until that point, we might have had, we've done at least 8 different programming pipeline events over the years with different partners in different capacities, and, you know, really wanted to build something that could be our own. And, you know, again, going back to our roots, which is, okay, before we go and launch something as massive as a bigger curriculum, which is what we have now, how do we just kind of put the brand out there? Where do we start? And one of the ideas was, well, we love a party, which is why I actually laugh, because we always love a party. So we were like, well, what if we threw like a networking party? And I think coming from my days at AFI, I was always really inspired by, you know, certain disciplines, certain filmmaking positions that naturally collaborate day in and day out, and feeling like across the industry, there's never an event or an intentional space where I feel like someone brings them together. And those 7 roles are a director, a writer, a cinematographer, a production designer, an editor, a costume designer. I'm forgetting one.
You got 'em all?
Producer.
Oh, producer.
Duh, that's what I do. But those 7 roles are the main department heads, the main most important people on any production. And what if we threw a party and made it exclusive, an exclusive invite, so it wasn't like just anyone can show up, but we put out calls for submissions. People get to submit samples in their work, and internally as a company as a whole, we went through every single submission and we settled on 10 invites per discipline. And so we had a private networking party for 70 people at Hilltop, because Issa owns Hilltop, and came up with icebreaker games. But it wasn't a full-fledged program. There wasn't an intention to make a short or anything, as much as it was to create the community, to create the space. And one thing that will always stick with me is at the end of that night, I think we shut it down at like 9 or 10 p.m., we had to literally shut the lights off, and people had they stood outside in the parking lot.
It was like they would not go home.
They were not leaving, because people were they were truly connecting, and they were exchanging information. And like, we literally were just like, okay, well, we locked the door, so let's just go home. We don't know what to do.
They found their
They
people.
found their people.
Leave them to it. Yeah.
But I think to see that was just so great, because it's fulfilling to be like, yes, this is the purpose. This is why we did this, right? And the thing that I think was most unfortunate was that, true story, but this was on, I think, a Saturday?
Yeah, it was
Yes.
like March.
It was on a
like
Saturday of
10th
March,
or-
like March
yeah.
1st.
Or something, yeah,
This
something
is
like
in 2020, so you know what happened that next Friday? The world shut down. And so one of our intentions, at least to experiment, was we told everyone, like, hey, when you leave here, if you find your people and you're able to find if you can form a team with one person from someone you met here tonight, and you come back to us and send us or pitch us an idea, we'll consider funding it for our YouTube channel. And we never got to see that through, unfortunately, because we all know what 2020 looked like. And so we were really bummed and really invigorated. And I think for the next 2 years, especially once we got our woman in chief, Syreeta, on board, and ColorCreative continued to grow, it was always top of mind in terms of how do we bring this back? And not only how do we bring it back, but now how do we use what we did as kind of an experiment and fully build it out to something that was more of a robust curriculum, and actually got to see things follow through. And I don't want to dive into it too much, because I feel like we'll talk about it some more. But what I'm most proud of how they've kind of rebranded the Find Your People program, because it was a Find Your People party. The program not only provides these curriculums, trainings, mentorship sessions, all the likes, but it's actually also getting these filmmakers through a green light committee, and now all of their shorts are actually being funded and close to production now. So it's incredible.
So exciting.
So yeah, we'll definitely dive more into the program shortly. But I think at this point it'd be good to understand, like you seem to have found your people at this point. What were some misconceptions you could share with how to not go about finding your people? Or what were you seeing that maybe you tried that didn't work? We've heard of what did work, but could you share with people what not to do, perhaps?
I think for me, coming from my side, it's like I'm always with a connection or someone that I want to like meet, or it's about being intentional. And I think not always like wanting or asking something of someone immediately, and like really trying to build and foster a relationship. And then I think also like just not always trying to climb, in the sense of looking, Issa always says, network across and looking around yourself. So I think that for me, being an assistant, and this is true now, a lot of the people that I was assisting with are now execs that are buying stuff. And I'm like, can you buy my client's project, please? So I think that was something that I think is important, and could be, a misconception of like, don't just like go for what you want 100%. Like, try to actually build a relationship with that person, because this business is a marathon. It's not a race. I mean, it takes years, and lots of times you have to really be dedicated to your craft and your vision and your goals. So know that like the people that you're maybe needing support and help from, like, build a relationship with them, because they should continue to be in your circle and in your tribe, I would say.
I mean, these ladies said so many of the same things, I would say, but I think Another misconception that I often see is I think a lot of people in this business get caught up in credits. They get caught up in optics of things, right? And so, you know, the most experienced people, the shiniest people, I think, are often who people want to gravitate towards and who they feel like are the ones who give them the opportunities. And it always goes back to why Issa says networking across is important, right? We think about how we met each other way back when, and you can hear so many similar stories. And I think, you know, the misconception when you find your people is that sometimes you want to find someone who is so experienced that you're so excited and want bragging rights to be working with them and collaborating with them, versus finding the people who you just like as a person and that you just believe in the same vision and the same stories, right? Because this business is all about relationships. This business is a people business. And I think everyone here will tell you, like, you know, you don't want to work with people you don't like, because these days are long, these hours are long, it is stressful, production is stressful. Production is, I wish anyone would tell me production's easy, because I'd laugh at you. It's just so stressful. So, like, if you're spending all this time, you want to spend it with the people you like and the people you don't have to worry about. And I think finding your people who are on the same wavelength as you is paramount, because at some point, depending on where you are in your career, you will all grow together. You really will. And so the marathon, not a race, it's true. And so I've seen it now that I've been around the block a little bit, and I look around, and sometimes I'm always just like so in awe of how many creators and just people that I met way back when who are doing such incredible things. You know, I think like of Syreeta and just us talking about, you know, she started off as an assistant on Insecure after the pilots, and she didn't mention that, but like, you know, I literally went to her baby shower after she graduated from college, and now this woman's showrunning shows on HBO Max. Like, that's incredible, right? So anyways, just find your people, and you don't have to look very far. They're probably all in this room, actually.
Well, let's go to that, Syreeta. So you're show running Rap Shit, and you brought it up before, just thinking about authenticity and how important that is to you. Talk to us about like how much of an intentional thought is making sure that you're doing, you know, you're show running and you're doing that with intentional authenticity, and how do you bring or ensure that you maintain authenticity in the work that you're doing?
Yeah, I think first of all, especially when we talk about a show like Rap Shit, like about women rappers, I'm a fan of the art itself. Like, I'm a fan of women rappers. And so I know what it feels like to experience that, to like experience the city girls, to see the viral moments, and to like experience the magic of Cardi, of Nicki, of Meg, like all that stuff that we're feeling. So I'm like, if it doesn't feel like that, then we're not, you know, doing it right. So I think first of all, having a personal experience was helpful. And then when it comes to like making a show like that, I mean, obviously there was the location of Miami that felt so, you know, is such a part of the story on its own. But then there's the music, you know, and so finding people who actually make music, you know, who actually write for some of these artists, or who produce for some of these artists, or who are from Miami, so they understand the Miami sound, like everything about it. And then also like a lot of the show features like the phone and the device, right? So it's like there's a social media and really in real time element to the show. So everything about it just had to feel present, even from how it looks, you know, when you put it up. Like, is that the Instagram that I use, or is that some shit they made up? Like, no, everything needs to feel, you know. And so, and I think, again, because we all are fans and we all love the music and we love that world, and we're Black women, and we wanted to, you know, we're passionate about telling the stories. It was really, I want to say it was pretty easy. I think some of the stuff was the Miami, right? So then we brought on people who were like from Miami, and who can kind of speak that specific lingo, because, you know, we're all about specificity. Because I mean, I think that's the stuff that really really resonates with people. That kind of like, I don't know, just the way that you say something, you know, that
The
just
nuance in it. Yeah.
Yeah, that nuance. But so it's something that's always been a priority. And I think, you know, just like even on Insecure, we told a story that was largely based in Inglewood, and you saw Inglewood, you know, and you learned things about Inglewood, even if you weren't from there. We wanted to do the same thing with the show in Miami.
And how about you, Ashley, in terms of coming at it from the management side? I guess, how do you maintain authenticity with your clients, and also help guide them to do so themselves with their career?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, one, hard work, right? I feel like when you manage, you have to believe in the person and you want to see them win. And I think that's what my amazing boss and our team, we think about every day, right? When we're talking about our clients, it's like, how do we make them win? How do we build their businesses? How do we create strategy? How do we offer information to them that we're hearing out in the marketplace that they may not know? You know, like those things are important. So I think authenticity becomes from being honest, you know, from wanting to be supportive and sharing. You know, we're managers that give notes if that's what you want, right? We want to hear what you want from us, but we're also going to try to provide a level of service that we consider, you know, top of the line white glove service, but with intention and care and love. You know, like we love our clients. Like I love Syreeta. We've built a friendship, a bond, but like seeing her and her work, it's just like there are not many people like her, and people don't get an opportunity a lot of times. And so it's like when she's in this, it's like, who do we need to call to make sure that things happen? Because we're not going to waste this time, and we're going to make sure she rises. And I think that those are some of the skills and things that I learned in terms of how to do the job at a CAA, but then coming to a Color Creative, and then the way that I came in and being able to have someone like Issa and Deniese trust me and say, go run, and like just go hustle. That was probably the most inspiring thing. And then bringing in my boss, who I already knew prior to from our days at CAA together, who's just a boss and boss woman, and it just makes it that much easier. So I think it's really about like, you know, like workplace, like cohesion is really important, and we're very lucky to have a great team that we're already authentic selves. When we come in the office, we can be candid about things, and then that carries on to how we treat our clients, and we always want our clients to feel loved and respected.
Well, as partners of ColorCreative, we can certainly vouch for your authenticity. Deniese, I guess just before I want to kind of do a throw forward to, you know, the Find Your People First cohort. You can kind of tell us where they're up to, because it's an exciting stage of the program. But just, I guess, helicopter out a little bit. And just final question on this theme of authenticity, I suppose. Can you share an example of a time in your career where it might have been at risk of being compromised, and advice, I guess, to the audience, or reflections on how you handled it, how you might have handled it differently, and maybe what's some red flags that you now see with the benefit of hindsight?
Oh man,
just a light question.
Well, the great thing is there's a lot of great examples of it, right? But I want to pull from one that is more of like a lesson type example, and I have to bring up Insecure just because we spent so many years on it and so much time, and to me it's one of the most intentional, authentic pieces of art that exists, right? But one thing that I often think about is in season 1, after we had already shot the pilot, your crew changes up, and like Syreeta mentioned, the setting of our show it's set in Inglewood. So many of those locations exist in real life, and that was intentional from the beginning. But we had a locations manager who was just not used to. We did a lot of things very different on our show because we were like, this is a show we want to make, and our show was unlike anything that had came before it. So it was kind of a shock to a lot of the people we were working with, because it was like they were just kept trying to make their jobs easy, and we were like, yeah, we know it's challenging, but this is what we're trying to do. So anyways, we had a location manager who there was an episode, and it called for a very specific type of location, and every time we were presented with the options, they were not it, and they were like in Pasadena and Monrovia and like East LA, or like East LA, and I'm sorry, I'm laughing because I'm like, I shouldn't call her out. So somebody on the team, we were so frustrated and fed up with just like, I don't understand how we're not getting through this, man. And he was like, well, it's called movie magic. The audience, you know, it's really about that. Isn't it the house that you're looking for, the place that you're looking for? Isn't it really about the interior location anyways, or the exterior? And we were like, no, that's not Inglewood. Like, you may think it's movie magic, but we're doing a show that is 100% authentic. Like, we're not okay with that, and neither will be the audience who's ever been in these neighborhoods, right? And I laughed because someone pulled out a map and they were like, okay, from now on, they drew a big red circle. I don't want to see any locations outside of this circle. And it was like all over West and South LA and West LA. But anyways, but that's like was such a great example because we fought for that. And I think obviously this is season 1. So what you're also doing is setting a precedent. You're setting a foundation. You're trying to make sure that, hey, this is what we want this show to be. And this is how we want, to be authentic at every level of detail because it matters to us. And I think the end result is something that's very special and that I think anyone can see, right? I think it's a layer to that show that is everything. So very proud of it, but it's such a great example more from a filming perspective of authenticity.
Can I just add to that? As somebody I was an assistant season 1, so I was very quiet. I was learning, and I was just watching everything. And I feel like I got to be everywhere because nobody was paying attention to me. But so I saw a lot. And I feel like I'd see the crew and all the like seasoned people be like, they don't know what they're doing. They're like, we're just going to like, you know what I mean? And I'd see you and Issa and Prentice and Melina like so sure of your vision and not let up. And sometimes it would be scary, like sitting in the room like, ooh, what's about to happen? Like, this person's been doing it for 25 years and they said that it's okay if you go shoot it over there. And it's just like, and you guys were like, no. And that's one thing I loved about Melina. And I was like, well, I want to be her. Because she'd be like, well, did you try? Okay, well, come back to me after you tried. Figure it out. Like, and I was just like, who is this black woman who sits in this room and tells people to figure it out? Like, and I loved everything about that experience. And it worked. And I think so then from then on, when people came onto the show, it was like, no, we have a way of doing things. It might be different from what you're used to, but like, this is the insecure way. And like, and I feel like it taught me to fight in a way that I don't know if you like, I didn't have that in me naturally, but I think seeing you guys do it and win and seeing how like, the end result, it left a lasting impression. And I hope it does on like the industry period when it comes to like making very specific content.
And okay, I would say my story hopefully probably shows you where to see the red flags from, which is people who don't support being authentic or at least not understanding why. And I think that was the basic thing there, which is I just remember being like, I don't understand why this is a fight. Like, even if this is just what we're asking for, more importantly, because there's real intention behind it. We're not doing it just for the sake of doing it. And I think that's where being authentic comes from, right? It is intentionality. It's kind of one and the same to some degree, but also being true to who you are and making sure you don't take any shortcuts to that.
Even to have the curiosity to try to understand why that location was so important. Okay, Find Your People program, your mentor to a cohort,
Yes,
Ashley?
yes, I am, yes. I love my crew.
You don't have any favorites, but...
I don't have favorites, but no, yes, I am a mentor to a cohort of 4.
Okay, so share with us where we're up to in the program and what's next for Find Your People, because it's a really exciting point.
It's really exciting. So my amazing team and I, we are all mentors to different cohorts, and they have gone through this program. We started with a really awesome, fun party, and then they were paired into groups. We love a party. The party still remains, but it's only one party. So they were put into their groups, and then we started some of the curriculum process, right? We had the mentors from different disciplines come in and do workshops with everybody together, right? And that was really awesome because it kind of started preparing them for what was to come, which was building your idea, creating what are we going to shoot? What are we going to write? What is the writer going to write? And I think the one thing that we wanted it to be, even though we wanted everyone to have the respect within their own discipline, we wanted everyone to have a little bit of say in what is our idea going to be, and then the writer will go off and write. And so right now we are in the process, we're almost into production and we're really excited. They've been working really hard, basically fine-tuning their script. They had to go through the green light process to even get the funds to say, okay, and this was like a real pitch. And the fun thing about this, what we did in this element, is everyone pitched, right? So how do you envision the set design? How do you envision the costume design? And that's generally not something that people get to do when they are pitching to studios. But I think what it showed people, when I tell my group about it, it's like, even if you don't have your set designer in that room with you, like, talk to a set designer. Think, like, is this realistic? What do you think this would actually cost? Like, I think some of those things are so helpful for you to think about ahead of time, so that you can really craft your project and make sure you're, treading in the right direction. So everyone got to speak to their, to their discipline and their part in the deck, which I thought was really great. And then once they got greenlit, we went into casting and, going to locations and figuring it out. And Deniese has been amazing in the sense where just kind of that over figurehead, being a producer, being a seasoned line producer, coming in and helping them. Okay, this may not work. Y'all may want to rethink this. Because, okay, you sure you want to do that? Okay, you really need to do 2 days. This is not a 3-day shoot. This is a 2-day shoot. You need to save your money, So, and they've been loving it. And so what we do is we meet with them about every 3 weeks or so. But they have access to our program team that is keeping them on track with their deadlines and things like that. And yeah, we're excited because we have a few more workshops coming up, production, legal, and meeting with business lawyers and accounting type folks. And so we really try to hit all the areas that you're going to encounter. And yeah, so we're getting to production. I'm very excited. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been, as I said, a privilege for Canva to be involved in that process as well, and host some design workshops and just support these amazing creators.
Yeah, the decks that they did via Canva, they look so good. So I will say, for all the creatives in the room, I was literally just saying earlier, I was like, I use Canva for everything now. Like, really, for our company, we use it for everything. And I was not as educated before, and it's such a resourceful tool. So filmmakers, you guys definitely use it, because I think if you're not like inclined to figure out to go pay to get a deck made, right? Like, this is another really great resource.
So I'm going to throw to questions in a moment, but whilst you're getting your questions ready, and remember there's the mic here, Deniese might ask you, what's the future vision for the Find Your People program? What does 2024 and beyond look like? There might be some interested applicants perhaps in the room.
I mean, we're nearing, I think, the tail end here of our first round, and we've learned a lot, but also it's only made us even that much more excited to be able to bring it back and find ways to just elevate it around the board. Just some key facts so you guys are familiar. We opened submissions in the spring. We received over 1,500 submissions across all 7 disciplines, and we ended up only selecting 28, right? Is it 4 in each? Yeah. So 28 people got accepted, right? And as Ashley said, they spent the summer doing this training curriculum, mentorships, workshops in each of their individual disciplines, but also larger. We had everyone from Ava Prokopsky, who shot Insecure, was as a DP mentor, Ramla Mohammed, who was a showrunner of Reasonable Doubt, was the writing mentor, and on and on. And so it really did kind of feel like we were setting them up not just for the program, but for their careers. And so I think moving forward, we definitely want to continue to have that dual hand approach, right? It's not just a production program. It's not just, yeah, you'll get to shoot a short film, but it's also spending a few months on building a training curriculum to really set people up to succeed. And I think, to be honest, at the end of it, find their people, and to be able to like leave this program feeling like they have found some amazing collaborators and friendships that they will cherish and continue to cultivate for life. And so, we're definitely looking to open up a second round. We don't have dates yet, so please don't ask me. But I would encourage you all to follow the ColorCreative social pages, because we're very active, and that's usually how we promote and put all of our information out there, including the first round. And I'm just always so grateful that people continue to take these risks with us. Even when we put it out there, I'm sure people were like, what is this exactly? It sounds cool. But to see the response, and then to have the cohorts be with us these last few months and get their genuine responses, it's so great.
I want to just add a quick anecdote to when Denise said they're finding their people, just like, for example, in my cohort, the editor is working on like this major, she's working on Beyonce's film, basically. She's a part of the editing team, and our director is also an editor, and she and him really bonded, and she ended up getting him a contracted position on the editing team. So now they're working together on Beyonce's film. And like, you know, so just small things like that, like we already kind of see the ecosystem working, and that's what we want. Like whether it's a job and you putting somebody on, or you guys go do your next project together, like that's exactly what we want.
It's working. Love it. Okay, any questions for the panelists?
I was going to say, is it because there's a mic?
Hey.
Hi, welcome.
Hey, so first I just want to say thank you all for all the information that you guys shared, your authenticity, and what I found or from listening to you all, it seems like finding your people started with you guys finding yourself in like transitional places, from transitioning from being an assistant to a manager, or making the decision to be a writer even though you were acting, or putting yourself out there for graduation. It kind of like divinely put you in place to find your people. So thank you for dropping that gem. I caught it. It was there. I was like,
That was a word, yes.
Let me catch the word when it's in the room. So you guys talk a lot about relationships and friendship and authenticity. And a question that I like to ask is, if friendship was a recipe, what would your 3 key ingredients be? So if friendship was a recipe, what would your 3 key ingredients be?
Just jump in there. And just
I'll say, yeah, I think loyalty is like a big one, you know, like sticking it out with someone is really important. So that'll be one of mine. I don't have 3. I don't know.
I think people who seek to understand you, who want to understand you and understand your heart, because I think when it comes to any sort of communication, whether it be a difficult communication, like being able to be honest with someone and know that they are always looking for the best in you and looking to understand what it is that you're saying, what you're trying to create, what you're trying to do, so then they can actually meet you where you are. I think that would be a key ingredient. Sorry.
All good ingredients. We're just gonna make a big old pot of
just one
gumbo
pot.
up here. So we're just gonna give one each because
That's what's happening.
because I was like, no, I would take both of those. And then I'd probably add. I know there's a better word for it, but the first word that comes to mind is like support. You know, like there's nothing I love more than my friendships who have my back at all times. I think it's a little bit different than loyalty. It's more about showing up when you don't expect anyone to. It's about showing up for them, even if they tell you they don't need you in the moment. But I think that level of support and just presence just has strengthened any and all of my friendship bonds.
That's a really good question.
Thank you so much for being here. My name is Chelsea Ramirez, and I just immensely grateful. It's been very inspiring and then informative, but mostly inspiring. My question comes with like the subject of boundaries, like saying yes and saying no, and knowing when to say that, the gut instinct, whatever relates to that. I guess just your advice on how you choose to say yes or no to a project, to people involved in that project, and especially when it was like early in your career and you're still finding your people.
I love that question. Can I answer? Yeah. Okay. I'm just gonna jump in. Because I like to talk about boundaries. No, I honestly, one of the things that I always feel like has been a guiding force in my career at all times, and something I tend to tell a lot of people, which is you really have to know yourself, right? And get to know yourself. And what I mean by that is, I think in life, no matter what it is, whether it's a project, an opportunity, a career change, any of the above, right? You're going to have options. And when you sit there and you debate all the options might bring you, at the end of the day, you have to know what's best for you. And you can't be making choices off of anyone else's intentions but your own. And that has guided me when even talking about what projects I want to work on, what people I want to work on, because I've always found my why. And so I always tell people, like, even if I turn something down, I know why I did it, right? Or when I'm debating about working with someone, especially when I think about it being a freelance producer for many years, so much of it was strategic. It was like, you know what, I am going to do this short film. I'm not going to get paid, but I've never worked with visual effects, and so I'm going to say yes because I want to work with visual effects, right? I want to learn that. And so I think just making sure that you are at peace with your choices, because at the end of the day, you're the only person it impacts. It's the only person it affects. So you have to feel okay with saying no to things, because there's no benefit in there for you, right? Because you'll know when there is. And so I feel like when you create boundaries, you kind of have to lead with self.
I want to answer that too, just because I thought of just when it comes to saying yes and saying no. Obviously, we had shot So Jaded, and then So Jaded was what it was, and then along came Insecure, and I came on that as an assistant. And I feel like maybe because I had a baby at home, or y'all just believed in me so much, Deniese and Issa tried to get me a job writing on a Lifetime show. Do you remember that?
Vaguely.
And they were like, you don't have to be an assistant here in the room on Insecure. You can go and it was a paid thing, like weekly, like more money than I would have ever made at that point, especially at that job. And I went and I interviewed, and I looked around, and I was just like, this don't feel like this. You
said, I want to go back to my people.
I did. And I was like, and I understood what I was saying no to, because they offered it to me. And I thought it was so sweet that you guys were trying to help me and like saw me as like ready to be like an actual writer in a room. But I was like, I'd rather be an assistant here and watch you guys build this. And I think for me, I felt like the growth was instead of like financial growth, I felt like I would have like some spiritual growth from being in the presence of you all while you guys were building that. And I was like, I think I got enough to pay my bills where I am, and as long as even if I just have the bare minimum and I got to borrow some money from my mama sometimes, like I'll do that because I want to be here in this space. And I think when you feel that convicted about something, then that's where you're supposed to be. Yeah, that's my yes and no.
Thank you. I needed to hear that. Thank you so much.
My bad, y'all. Hey, y'all fly. I wanted to say that too before. See how you stepped out with your bow. I had to, man. I was seeing you. Y'all stepped out with the booms and the bows.
Yes, we appreciate you.
It's in two parts. I'm gonna keep it short. The first part is how great of depth do you feel the responsibility of our culture while producing, right? You all are producers, so I'm saying that as a reference, right? So the first part is how relevant is our culture in your ideation, your manifestation, your producing? So I can be specific. I had to learn that through therapy. I got to be specific with the words. And then I got the second part for you, but I wanted to ask that part. So the first part question is, how do you keep the culture relevant in your ideation, your manifestation, and your producing? So we got ideation, and then we got like tactical, in your hand, let's go, in the office. I want to hear how you guys handle that. You all handle that.
Yeah.
Give it to me, Zebra. Give it to me, Zebra.
No, yes, I am a zebra today.
Come on here.
No, I think, from a manager perspective and producing, alongside, like I'm a different type of producer, right? Like I produce with clients, and then we have some stuff that we do on the unscripted side and independent feature side that we're, moving towards, and then brand and social. So I think that culture is prevalent in everything. And I think that how you show up to a job and or how you show up to a set, we're representing culture, we're representing ourselves, we're representing the company. And so I think from my standpoint in my day to day, it's really about maintaining the reputation of the company. And we're cool people and we like being cool people and but we get our work done, and so I think that there's intentionality in that and knowing that people look to us now for those cultural moments and for those things because of the massive business that Issa has built, that yeah, we just take it day by day and just, working and hustling. And people know when Color Creative's calling, it's like, oh, they got someone dope that they're about to share with us or put up for this job. So, yeah, like from the manager standpoint, we just, we know, but what the beautiful thing about it is, like, we're walking behind these people that are the ones that are setting the tone for us to be able to speak to that. A lot of what me and my team do is we're on the phone all day. We're speaking the gospel of our clients. I always like to say that. I'm preaching the gospel of Syreeta today, and
Thank you for sharing.
and that's how we kind of maintain it and walk in line with how they set the standard for the culture.
Thank you.
When I think about culture, I think about, obviously the stories that we're telling. And I think for me, I know when it's not right, because I'm like, myself and the people who are in place, who are on the team, like, we get the culture, we're part of the culture. So as long as we are speaking our authentic experience and nobody else's, our genuine lived experience, then we are in alignment with the culture. When it doesn't feel right, that's when I'm like, I have never seen anybody put barbecue sauce inside of mac and cheese. Now, it's probably fire. I don't know. That's a bad example. But, like, you know what I mean? Cream cheese in mac and cheese. Y'all like that?
Stop it.
I've seen some nasty stuff. And, like, when you show up on set. And it's just like, that nobody's eating that. Like, we don't pickle everything. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that kind of thing. So when it's not right. But I think you can feel it when people are speaking an experience that's not theirs, or trying to interpret an experience that's not theirs. And that's just what we don't do. And as long as we don't do that, then I feel like we're always in alignment with the culture that we are already a part of.
I think these ladies gave
Where'd you
two
go? You disappeared.
wonderful. No, he's right there.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
No, I was going to say, I think you guys gave such wonderful answers, and I do want to make sure everyone gets a chance to ask a question. So I'm going to respectfully agree and move on.
Ditto.
Could I just have a quick time check just to hopefully get through you all, because it looks like a great line there, but how are we going, Amani? Great.
Yeah, we'll
right,
keep them short.
I'm gonna make it swift now. I ain't gonna take too long. I already know. My question is, with the development of something beautiful, I know that you have to have a really selective team. So how do you go about inviting new people into that team and making sure that they're not messing up the feng shui?
Wow. I don't know, because I was like, I feel like we can all answer that in different ways.
Yeah.
Look, I think at the end of the day, I look at passion. And obviously talent comes after, right? What is this person adding to the team in terms of benefits, but also, do they have the burning desire? Do they have the passion? Are they going to be just as excited as I am, the rest of my team will be? And I'm going to be very honest, it doesn't always work out. That's the truth. You're not always going to get it right in terms of forming a team, in terms of finding the right team, because the truth of the matter is, you won't know until you just work together, right? It's like you won't know until you know. And so I think also knowing that and making sure that that never feels like it's a failure because you didn't find your right person. It just means that someone else is out there, right? And so it's giving the opportunity when you know it's right, but also knowing that, you're hiring this person for what you think at the time are the right reasons. But then just wanting to be faced with the reality that, I've worked on so many sets, so many things in my career where you're kind of disappointed because you're like, dang it, I really like them, but I know this is not a good fit. And, having to make those cuts are sometimes some of the hardest choices to make, but it's also part of being in the position to hire people, and knowing when they just don't work out.
I'll speak from the management's perspective. I think there's like a level of readiness where it's like when you see a potential client and someone that you're like, oh my God, I want to fight for this person. I want to be making all these calls for this person. I want to be sending out submissions for this person. Now, there is a level of readiness. I feel like people always ask me, like, when should I get a manager? And it's like, you'll kind of know when you're ready for a manager because you would have been producing in the sense of just things to get yourself ready, right? Like multiple samples potentially or whatever it may be for you, right? But I think that relationship comes in different ways, but I think that how it doesn't mess up the feng shui or it works is if you come with the level of readiness and then you meet a manager or someone that is not going to bullshit you. Sorry for cussing. BS you and, really supports you and help you get to the next step.
That's real. Thank you.
I'm so little. Thank you so much to the three of you for taking your time today. My name is Mylene. My question is in relation to we have all worked with multiple people in our lives, and you all have found your people and are building that. What is your advice for conflict resolution? And I guess, like, how do you know when you want to actually resolve a conflict versus walk away from it?
You guys have deep questions tonight. But I love it. I'm here for it.
Yeah. I always like to address a conflict with a potential solution. Like, I hate telling somebody, like, I hate this or this or that. And it's like, okay, well, then what else? Like, because I feel like if you're going to give me feedback or say you don't like something and it's like, or something's wrong, then it's like, well, then how do you think we can fix it? So I feel like that's something I always try to do in the sense of before I make that decision to walk away. Because sometimes you're not going to be able to fix everything. But I think that being solution oriented, it's like if I know something's bothering me, it's like, okay, I have to say something. But like I feel like when you, in a nice way, offering a solution can kind of help you get to that next step. And if that doesn't work out, they don't have a solution, then it's like, okay, cool. You figure out a way to walk away from it. But I think being solution oriented could help with that.
Yeah, I think there are two ways that I typically go about conflict. And I think one is having great mentorship. So it's like, hey, let me call my managers and ask them, how do I handle this? Because you can't just go having conflict with everybody. You just can't. Like, So sometimes Ashley's like, oh, don't you worry, I'll have that conversation. And I'm like, ooh, hey, great. Or it's like, if Syreeta, if you feel like you need to address this yourself, then like, let's kind of talk about it and let's talk about what's okay so that you are safe in this interaction or you're protected in this interaction. That's one way. Another way, sometimes I think of conflict like conflicting ideas, right? In the same way that I think of notes that you receive from a producer, from studio, wherever. It's like, even if you don't necessarily agree, that person is probably picking up on something that is missing or something that needs to change, whether it be in the environment, the work, whatever. So even if I don't like what you're saying or I don't like the delivery necessarily and like what's behind this, because there's always room for improvement. So I think like not having a crazy ego about whatever it is that you're doing and like always being open to who you are and what you're doing, expanding, based off of feedback. I think that kind of helps you navigate through conflict when you're not too defensive and too in your own like, ego about any particular thing.
And I'll just add really quickly because as a producer, I feel like this is all we do all day long is mediate and solve conflicts. That is our job. But I think, to be honest, the best way to approach it in any situation is to come in and always listen. I think so many people in conflict, they're so busy trying to get their point across, or they're so busy being upset, or whether you're the one instigating it or you're the one that's being dealt with having to find a solution for it. You have to listen to everyone and try to really understand what the root of the problem is. Because if no one's listening to each other, then that's when it becomes too noisy and you do want to walk away because you feel like this is just impossible, right? So if you're the one who's able to kind of come in and actually listen to all sides, including your own, and really trying to figure out, well, where's the middle ground? That's how you mediate something, which is, at the end of the day, not everyone's going to win. There's going to have to be a compromise made somewhere. And so making sure that is being understood. And sometimes I've taken the compromising position because I just want to solve it and move on. And I'm okay with that, right? So to be able to approach it in that way. And when you walk away is when, honestly, you've tried all solutions and nothing's worked. And I think there's so many other things going on where it's just not worth the time if something doesn't feel like it's moving forward.